Hi, this is Joseph Arthur. Thanks for checking out Come to Where I'm From. Please support us on Patreon, patreon.com/come to where I'm from. We are an independent podcast, and any contributions you can make are greatly appreciated. Today's episode is Michael Imperioli. You know what? That's great. I actually took Willie Niles. I did, and I read like 6 chapters. No, I'm gonna give, because you signed it to him. Yeah, and I want you to sign it. It's fantastic, man.
You don't want a book signed to Willie Nile?
That's kind of funny too. I'm supposed to give it to you.
Should we start?
Yeah, we're starting. We drop in.
There we are. All right.
Michael Imperioli. Is that how you say it?
That's exactly right.
Imperioli. Joining us on the podcast. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. What's the name of the podcast?
Come to Where I'm From.
I like that.
It's the name of my second album.
That's a good name.
Yeah, I want to give you my new album.
What's the name of that?
Come Back World. Listen, I've been reading this book. I haven't gotten all the way through it, but it's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Which book is that, Joe?
The Perfume Burned His Eyes. It's your debut novel, right?
Debut novel. Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah.
How did you do this? Like how did you come up with the concept of it, the characters? Like, how close does it resemble your life? Because immediately, I haven't gotten all the way through it. I just got it yesterday, but it was a page turner.
Yeah.
And it immediately draws you into the central character. It feels very personal. It feels like almost like an autobiography.
Right. That's good. That's a compliment. It's not an autobiography. I mean, there are some parallels because this kid is born and grows up in Jackson Heights. Mm-hmm. So he was born in 1961, and the story starts in 19...
Is that when were you born?
I was born in 66. So in 1977, when the story takes place,
right,
I was 11.
Yeah. So
I was not in New York. I was not in Manhattan. I was right outside the city in Mount Vernon. But I came to the city at 17, 1983. And even though like Jackson Heights and Manhattan is very close, they're very different worlds. Or they were then. They probably still are. So I know that experience of coming from someplace that's not far, but being in this kind of creative, crazy, exciting world of Manhattan. Mm-hmm. I said it in 77 because I have more. I like the art and the world that was going on here at the time.
Yeah.
But that's really where the stories diverge. I mean, none of the events are true. I mean, some of the biographical stuff, Lou Reed is one of the characters in the book, and his girlfriend, Rachel. Some of the biographical stuff about him is true for the time.
Mm-hmm. Did he have an iron cross in his blonde hair? I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah. I'll show you some photos.
That's a real thing?
Yeah, he had it shaved into his head around that time.
And you keep having him smell like kerosene. What's that all about?
Well, when someone is shooting speed for days, that kind of that sweat that comes off your body, there's a very distinctive,
a chemical sweat,
like cleaning fluid, kerosene, and BO, and tobacco, booze, and whatever that poison does to you when you sweat it out in the heat. It stinks.
Yeah.
Is that the Coney Island Baby Lou Reed era?
Well, actually, Coney Island Baby was written dedicated to Rachel, his girlfriend. So yeah, around then, actually, later in the book, he begins to write Street Hassle.
Right.
There's a scene in the book where he's actually writing it because he breaks up with his girl, and Street Hassle was inspired by that breakup.
I didn't know that.
But so I started writing a coming of age story.
Turn his mic down, your mic up. Leave my mic where it is.
I started writing a coming of age story about a 16-year-old boy because my son, my middle child, 2013 was 16, and he was going through teenage stuff, and I was just trying to find a way to relate. So I started writing this story, not about him, but trying to get into that head again, so I could relate better to him. About 3 months into the writing, Lou died, and Lou was not a character in the book at the time. And besides being a real artistic hero of mine,
right,
and an inspiration to me, we became friends around 2000, and he his death had hit me on a number of levels, as I know it did you.
Yeah.
I know your album is great, the tribute.
Oh, thank you.
And I know you loved him.
Oh,
and
yeah, totally beyond.
You know, I mean, as a New Yorker, as a fellow artist, just as someone, as a fan, I mean, when he died, it was like the end of a lot of things in a way. I mean, we'll always have him, but we won't have him.
I feel him like he's like a spirit guide to me.
Totally.
Fully. I mean,
so
yeah.
I put him in the book, and kind of every day I'd sit down and I'd be with Lou. It was great.
Yeah.
You know, imagining what he was doing in the story at the time, and that's how the book was born.
Yeah. So it just came from your imagination. All these all these characters.
Yeah.
It's genius, dude.
Thank you.
It's really like it's over the top. Like, cause like the thing is like you're a really good actor. Everybody knows that. You know that goes without saying. But it's like so when somebody who's attempting another realm in the arts.
Yeah.
You know, particularly like writing a novel, and it's a first novel. Your tendency would be to think like, oh man, you know,
it's a vanity project.
Well, or at best, it's going to be a developmental. But it really feels like fully, like I was just blown over by it because it's like fully, like it's full on. It just like draws you super in, and you just like I wanted to keep reading it.
That's
like,
great.
Yeah, and not all books, especially our fractured attention spans nowadays.
I know.
For a novel to grab you and like make you want to read it.
Yeah.
Like that's.
Well, that's great. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, I'm very impressed.
I mean,
I almost said proud of you. But
I'll take the pride. I'll take your pride. You know, I've had a parallel career as a writer in addition to
well,
this.
that's true.
So I've written
you wrote screenplays for like Spike Lee.
Spike and Summer Sam, and I wrote and directed a movie
Sopranos
called The Hungry
episode.
Ghost. I wrote some Sopranos.
Right.
I've written a lot of things that have not been produced.
Right.
And that started a while ago. So
you've been writing a long time.
Yeah, but fiction really has become my love. Not as before I wrote the book, as a reader.
Yeah.
In the last 20 years, it just consumes more and more of my life. And I have a good buddy who has a book coming out this month, Gary Littman, his first novel, and he was there last night. And one day he said, you know, you should write a book. And I was kind of crazy enough to take him and believe it, and I was like,
he gave you the idea to do it.
Well, you know, sometimes you just need a little shove, you know, because I attempted short stories and fiction, but it was always I couldn't get it. But there was a germ of this kid there, and then when I started writing in the first person, it just started to flow like a journal, you know, inside his head rather than the third person omniscient observer that was too big for me. So getting the scope smaller helped.
I think that's what makes it feel personal too.
Yeah.
And so, did you do any like studying? Like, did you like take first novel writer workshop? You know, that type of thing.
No,
or did you just like morning pages, the artistic way? Any of that?
None of that. A lot of writing, but really just reading a lot, and when something really resonated, when I would read something that really blew me away, try to say, well, why? What about this touches me? Why do I connect to this writer? And I've read other great writers that I couldn't get through their books because it didn't resonate, and other people are blown away. I'm not judging the quality, but not everything, like with music, not everything resonates.
Yeah.
However, some people, it may be their favorite thing in the world, and you
That's
listen, you're
true.
like, it's technically great. I mean, inspired, but it leaves you cold, maybe.
Yeah, I can recognize the quality in some stuff and still not really kind of give a fuck about it.
Yeah, and then some
Excuse
stuff is rough and primitive, but it resonates and touches you.
Right.
I mean, you can't,
like Iggy Pop. Like a lot of loose stuff, too.
A lot of stuff.
Especially on Street Hassle.
That's a great record.
It is.
It's a great record.
It's funny.
It's nasty, funny, sad, tragic.
So what are some examples of some of the writers that really moved you?
Isaac Bashevis Singer was a Jewish. His family were Holocaust survivors, but he lived in New York in like the 50s, 60s. He wrote for the Jewish Daily Forward newspaper, but he won the Nobel Prize, I think, in the 70s. But he had a very he wrote a lot of short stories and a bunch of novels, but he had a very simple voice but he had a deep compassion for the human experience, and that's what got me.
Compassion for the human
Yeah,
experience.
like Jack Kerouac was a big influence. I think Kerouac is a very underrated writer, despite his lofty status as this beat
Beat
hero. But as a writer, I think he was very underrated because he, On the Road is the one the majority of people associated with. That's not one of my favorites of his, and that's what he's known for because it was his story. But his actual skill as a writer, I think, is very underrated. He was a brilliant, extremely well-read guy, extremely well-educated guy, and extremely technically proficient as a writer. I love Tristessa. I love Big Sur, Dharma Bombs. Those are my favorites, and I think they're towering works of literature.
What about Mexico City Blues?
Fantastic.
That's the book of poems.
He was a tremendous poet. The Scripture of the Golden Eternity, which are poems really about Buddhism, and he had an incredible knowledge of Buddhism.
Mm-hmm. And you're into Buddhism too.
I'm a Buddhist. Yeah,
you're a Buddhist.
My wife and I became Buddhists about 12 years ago.
Huh.
In Tibetan tradition.
Okay. And you meditate and stuff like that.
Yeah, I meditate and study. Try to be a good person.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that, but I want to stay on Kerouac for a second because it's interesting to me how. Do you ever see those like later day interviews? Of course,
on the Buckley show.
Yeah, when he's all fucked up.
Yeah.
And he's like just gave up on life.
Horrible.
And I mean, he's like back when I first started seeing it, I was like, oh, he was old, but he's like 35. Like
he died
dude,
at he was very young. He was in his 40s when he died.
Right. Like
you know how he died, right?
Alcoholism, right?
Well, alcoholism weakened his system a lot, but he was living in Florida.
Uh-huh.
He married a girl that he dated when he was in high school, very late in life. He knew her family, her brothers.
Yeah.
And he needed somebody to basically take care of him and take care of his mother. So he married this woman. He was living with her and the mother in Florida. And he wasn't really writing, and he was drinking every day. And he went to a bar with a friend of his in Florida. And it was mostly an African-American bar. He was, I think, maybe the only white guy. And he was drunk. And somebody kind of called him, like fag or something.
Uh-huh.
And he got the shit kicked out of him, and he wouldn't fight. He was very nonviolent and wouldn't fight, and he got beaten. They started a fight somehow, either with a friend, some drunk guy. They called him that slur, and a fight ensued. He got his ass kicked, and a few days later, he died of internal bleeding.
That's crazy. That's how Jaco Pastorius died.
Really?
Yeah, he got beat up, and then, died later in the hospital.
And I never knew that. I found out that recently. It really broke my heart.
I didn't know that. That's weird that I didn't know that.
It's weird that I didn't. I've known him. I've known his work for years. Heartbreaking.
That is heartbreaking.
But now this is a guy who understood Buddhism, yet the alcoholism
trumped it.
I think it trumped everything. And the bitterness about. This is what I'm saying. He was underrated. He became this hippie icon, and he did not feel like a hippie. He was a very spiritual guy.
Right.
It wasn't about tune in, drop out, and all that. It was really about compassion. The word beat, he coined that from beatitude, beatific.
Yeah.
He was a very religious guy. His brother died. His older brother died when he was a boy, and this kid was having visions of saints and Christ, and the priests were writing it all down.
He was Catholic, right? As well as Buddhist.
Yeah, and French Canadian and Catholic. Yeah. And the priest wrote down all his brother's visions, and his brother died as a boy and was this kind of almost like quasi-saint.
Yeah.
So he grew up with that kind of mysticism.
That's wild. And Neil Cassidy died in a very weird way, like frozen on a train track at San Miguel.
Walking. Do
you know that? I've walked down those train tracks
really?
before. Yeah, dude. I used to go there all the time.
After being up for days on speed.
Dude, it's walking. Like they die these tragic deaths.
Yeah.
I just don't get giving up on life. I mean, okay, I can understand.
Well, addiction could do that.
Yeah, addiction, but I've dealt with that too. I don't know. Maybe maybe it's different times or something, and there's more ways out of it.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I don't. And everybody's different. And
everybody's different.
But yeah, the stuff on Buckley, There's that movie, What Happened to Jack Kerouac, which I love, and Ginsberg talks about when Jack was on Buckley. And Jack got drunk before the show, and he was basically set up by Buckley to have this, this right-wing guy and this professor kind of denigrating the hippies and trying to bait Jack. And Jack was bored and just kind of wanted to talk about writing, and he just didn't,
I mean, that bit would be as funny as like Serge Gainsbourg, like with Whitney Houston on that one show where he was.
Oh, I never saw that.
Yeah, it's like it would be funny if he recovered his life.
Right.
It's only tragic in that he never recovered his life, and then so that's kind of the last impression you're left with.
I know.
There was no redemption.
Right, and Lou managed to transcend all that and go on till his 70s and be creative and be
yeah,
vital
Lou
and stuff.
completely transcended all that.
He did.
100%.
He could have died very easily a long time ago.
He 100% transcended it.
Never became a nostalgia act to just tour and do the hits.
His last fucking album is the most hardcore, craziest lyrics ever written by anybody in rock and roll music. And then it was a big this from the press. I'm putting up two middle fingers for the people like listening only, and it's the most forward-thinking, craziest, and he thought it was his best album. And then David Bowie said it was his.
Bowie, right?
Yeah, you told me that.
Did I? I don't know.
You told me that when we met. You told me that about Bowie. I
loved it.
I didn't know that. Lulu, yeah. No,
I love Take No Prisoners.
Oh yeah,
that's my favorite.
Yeah,
because it actually influenced my book a lot because it's really like spending an evening with Lou in 78 or 79 when it was made, and it's just hilarious, and his banter. But the performances of like Berlin and Coney Island Baby and Saturday Night Love are tremendous. And the band, I don't even know who was with him at the time, but the band is, it's powerful, and you can it's at the bottom line, but I love that record. It was a double album, but it's really good.
Yeah. I miss the bottom line.
Oh, what a great place.
Yeah. When you're writing a character based on a real guy, Lou Reed, but you're fictionalizing it, what's that tightrope dance like?
Well, first of all...
Because you also know, like, even though he had already passed when you decided to make him a character, you certainly know other New York luminaries are going to be paying attention.
Of course.
And
well, I wouldn't have written it if he was alive, first of all, just because...
It would be too weird.
I think it's a bit of an invasion.
Right.
And when someone dies, or if someone's famous, once they die, or if they're famous, they have no right to privacy or libel laws or something like that. They don't apply anymore.
Is that right?
That's what my lawyer, as I had a lawyer look at the book.
Oh, you're saying like actually legally. I was like thinking moralistically.
Well, no, maybe not moralistically. But I wrote this as a tribute and as out of respect and love, of course. But I tried to really, I watched a lot of interviews over the years, and I read a lot about that period of time.
Yeah.
Interviews and biographical material, just, and just tried to, go there and just, all right. So the kid walks in the apartment and Lou's there with his girlfriend. What are they doing? What's he saying? What state of mind is he in? He lived for a couple of years on the East Midtown, like in the 50s, near for East End Avenue.
That's so
which
weird.
Is weird.
That's very weird.
Yeah, with Rachel, who was transgender girlfriend.
Do you go into that in the book, like later? Because I'm only at like chapter 6.
Oh yeah.
You go into the fact that she's transgender.
Yeah, very subtly. It's not. It doesn't become a big issue.
How does it's Matt? How does Matt discover that, or does he?
He sees. Actually, I actually did not read the section. He sees in the light that her beard is coming through a little bit. Because Rachel, I don't think, was not on. I'm not sure if she was on hormones. Like, there's some photos you could see that she wasn't really hiding the fact that she was transgendered.
Yeah.
But that's kind of par for the course for Lou Reed. What was weird to me is that he was living on East 50-something Street instead of the Village or Lower East Side.
Yeah.
What was his neighbors saying? They see this guy who had been up for 3 days recording Metal Machine music and, with sunglasses, stinking with this girlfriend, and they're living, it's a doorman building. I mean, what the fuck was that like?
Yeah.
That fascinated me.
I think about, like, do you ever think about Lester Bangs at all?
Well, there's a section in this book where Lou writes a letter to, I don't mention Lester by name.
I talked to Lou about Lester.
He
I got
writes a
funny
letter to
story.
Lester in the book.
Really?
Yeah, you'll see it when you get there.
That's killer because I happen to know, like, Lou, like, we were walking down, I forget, because I was a Lester Bangs fan as well, like the Carburetor Dung book, whatever that was, like his collected writings. And a lot of the Lou Reed stuff is really funny, but it was also mean-spirited towards Rachel.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, because I asked Lou later, later, it's like, hey, what do you think of Lester Bangs? And he was just like, basically like, I'm glad he's dead. Kind of like, it was just like, like no mercy, like no.
Yeah.
I was like, really, no nostalgic, like anything? And he was like, no.
Well, you'll see the letter.
Lou had no, like, it was like once you crossed a certain line, there wasn't any kind of like, what do you call it, like, oh, fuck it. It all comes out in the wash. Or
there's
whatever.
no middle ground.
There's no middle ground.
That's the letter.
Yeah. Is this like, and this is just coming from you?
That's
huh?
I made that up, yeah. I know that Lou was pissed at him, but that's where it comes.
Do you want to read it?
Sure.
That would be cool.
Really?
You read excellent.
I'll set it up because, so that you understand the context, right?
So yeah, we watched actually an episode. We watched a performance yesterday of Michael performing parts of the book with some esteemed colleagues.
Yeah.
And it was excellent and very like New York art. Like I'm sure Lou would totally have appreciated that energy that you're bringing to the city.
I'd like to think so
as well. Like
he loves theater. He went to the theater a lot.
Yeah.
He loved movies and New York stories and stuff. So.
Yeah.
All right, I'll read a little bit.
Okay, please.
We got a minute?
Yeah, of course, dude. We got as much time as you can afford.
So I'm reading from the boys' point of view. Shortly after I was formally dubbed Tim, because Lou gives him a name, Tim. You'll find out if you read the book. Lou gave me an unsealed envelope with a folded piece of paper inside. The envelope was addressed to a man in care of a music magazine located in Los Angeles. He told me to keep the letter until he was ready to send it, and that I was welcome to read it, but might be better off if I didn't. Be sure to wash your hands after if you do read it, he laughed. Better yet, wear gloves. He explained that he was afraid of the force contained within the envelope, and that once unleashed on its target, some of its destructive powers could leak out into the world. This energy had the capability to alter the angle of the Earth's axis, so he wasn't sure if he was ever going to send it. I was to keep it in a safe place and await further instructions from him. I, of course, read the letter despite the warnings. It was handwritten in a manic, rabid print, each word tightly compacted and compressed, though the spaces between were generous. He had done things to the page itself. I'd rather not say what I imagine he did. It involved bodily fluids. But nevertheless, I'm glad I listened to him and wore the suggested gloves, which in my case were mittens. Before reading the letter, however, I asked Lou what had prompted him to write it. He said the intended recipient had published some extremely cruel and inhumane things about Rachel in a magazine article about Lou's last record. The following was Lou's defense of his lady's honor. January 15th, 1977, 446 East 52nd Street, New York, 10022. Dear unesteemed journalistic scum / shallow size queen, I hereby supplicate, through truest intent, purest pledge, duly sworn oath, and most high prayer, all the gods and demons who lit the fires, dropped the frogs, pissed the blood, who sent the swarms of locusts, malarial fleas, and poxed lice upon the house of Ramses. I beseech them to dump the turds of 1,000,000 infectious buzzards upon your head, the feces infused with the syphilitic pus and madness of all the dead whores of Babylon and Baghdad. May the facsimile of manhood that lies between your legs wither, fester, and decay like the corpses that filled the pits of Buchenwald and Birkenau. May your manque genitalia become a faucet and font of the most fetid and diseased sewage ever to seep quiet through the veins of Calcutta and black-plagued London. And all the evils of the Aztec heart-eaters, the 1,001 Arabian Sahars, the most abhorrent, obscene, defiling, and profane spells and incantations in the entire canon of Haddos, left-handed path, the yanas, the yantras, the maras, the mataris, the second face of Mordrake, the 107 adventitious stains, the 909 untimely Turkish deaths, the 51 omens of Jeptath, the hex of the 66 hairs, may they ceaselessly bear their malevolent and wicked fruit upon you and your house for generation upon generation, uninterrupted. Get the picture, motherfucker. From this day forth, I strictly and explicitly forbid you to hear any sound I have ever uttered, created, or recorded. Either spoken word or musical note, whether voice my own or instrument born. For you and yours I now render and infuse every note, riff, vibration, every syllable with the potentiality described above. You are forewarned. Beware. Don't say I didn't tell you. You will reap tears from the filth you have sown, and happier I could not be. Yours in hate. Here he scrawled his indecipherable signature. Lou never mentioned the letter after he gave it to me that day. It remains in my possession, but is now sealed.
That's fantastic.
He was pissed off.
Yeah.
You went through all religions there, right?
Ow, whatever.
The 10 plagues.
Whatever he can get. Whatever he can unleash. Revenge.
Fantastic, man. Fuck, dude. You're a really good writer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And it reminds me, and this is another compliment. It reminds me of a little bit when you read. It reminds me of Kerouac.
Yeah.
You know, when his reading style is fantastic.
Yeah. I'm sure it's affected me.
Oh yeah,
I love his reading
Have you checked out his reading style? The Kerouac recordings.
Steve Allen show. That's a great one.
Yeah.
I love how he reads.
I think that's affected anyone who's come after him. It's a bit like anybody who listened to Jimi Hendrix play guitar.
Right, that's true.
You know,
That's true.
like,
You can't help it.
You can't help it.
Right.
It's gonna affect you. But yeah, man. Damn.
It seems like the whole book is a tribute to Lou, from the title.
The title's from the song Romeo Had Juliet.
And what's the cover photo, Joe? Can you show
That's
it? Where's that from?
That's a photo.
About that.
I think his name was Joseph. Let me see the credit.
And there's
photo credit.
Arthur in there too.
Tell the guy. The guy's name was Joseph Sterling. He was a Chicago photographer. This was from a book, photos called The Age of Adolescence, from the late 50s to the mid 60s. And I saw there was an article after Dennis Johnson died. They published one of his short stories. I think it was called Killer Joe. And I saw that photograph. And I was just finishing the book, or just dealing with the publisher. And I was like, that's got to be my cover. Wow. I wanted it to look like a Smiths album.
Yeah, it does.
Bro, good call.
Because I love the Smiths
that
and their
aesthetic
album. When I saw the photo, I was like, I got to get it. So we tracked down the gallery. He passed away, but his widow is alive, and we sent them the book, and they were very reasonable, and we gave them, a bit of a fee, not that much, but they were kind, and we got to use it. So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Who published it?
Akashic Books out of Brooklyn. They're great publishers. Lydia Lunch has published some stuff with them, and Johnny Temple, who started it as a record label. He's a musician. He was in a DC punk band called Boys Against Girls. Mm-hmm. And he's great. They're just awesome.
And you connected through Lydia Lunch with this publisher? Or was it blind submissions or what?
I Googled best independent publishers in America.
And they came up?
They came up, and City Lights, who, was the Beats, and I love that bookstore. So I wrote an email to City Lights and an email to Akashic, and City Lights never got back to me, and Akashic did. And it turned out Johnny Temple, the publisher, and I had a mutual friend, so he vetted me through her, because they only like to really work with people they're going to get along with.
Right.
And whose work they like, obviously. So, and they just gave it so much love and care and continue to do so. And I love them. They're great.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
I'm excited for you. Also seems like it's like ready to be a movie or so.
That's the plan. I mean, first I want to put it up. last night was the first time I read it with other actors. So I had 2 actors, Nomi Ruiz, who read Rachel, and a friend, E.J. Carroll, read another character.
She's great.
She was really good.
Yeah.
She was really good. So the next step, what I want to do is have about 7 actors. Maybe a couple of them read more than one character on stage, like a radio play, with Elijah Amerton, who played bass last night, and Lenny Kaye wants to play guitar, and we'll do it at Joe's Pub, and we'll read the characters, and like a radio play.
Right.
That's the next step, because the live readings have been just nice vibes and good experiences, and the more I like collaborating, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of magic in collaboration.
Totally. Yeah.
I want to ask you, did you ever get into Charles Bukowski?
I like Charles Bukowski a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's an underrated writer, you know, because people are in love with the persona,
and people want to dismiss it. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's very, very skilled, and
he's amazing.
He hides it too. Like he makes
in simplicity.
He hides it in simplicity, but then there'll be a line where you're like, whoa, where you see the real artistry.
Well, you were sort of like, I forget how you put it, but like the sort of, if you can feel like an empathetic vibration towards the characters within the book, maybe it's more inspiring. And like his coming of age story, Ham on Rye,
right,
is incredible.
Really incredible.
Yeah, I mean that's an incredible one. And Women is funny.
Yeah, I prefer the fiction to the poems.
I like the poems a lot.
Although the poems are
well.
good. I don't connect as much, but I find him really entertaining. I like
exactly.
You just move. You just you can't put him down, and it's funny.
Yeah.
And some of it's horrific, scary and really, really dark.
Yeah.
And but I enjoy reading him a lot. But I think people are in love with the. I always say
the persona.
If those books were written by like some
Yeah.
spinster librarian woman living in the Midwest who never touched a drop of alcohol, would they still be as beloved and successful? Could they have been written? I don't know.
I think what you're like, the thread that is occurring to me right now is people whose persona overwhelms their output, even though their output is bonkers. Like on the level, like Kerouac's output is bonkers, but his persona was so bonkers. Same with Bukowski. I think another character that I equate that with is Mick Jagger, one of the greatest songwriters ever, but never really gets said to be that.
His
directly.
writing is incredible.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know. Maybe there's something to that, like where when somebody's persona is.
I know. Just think a jigsaw puzzle, like the lyrics in that song. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, visionary. Like
Yeah, that's when the psychedelic drugs started kicking in.
But brilliant, yeah. But but he's in a way. I mean, like he has all the hits, but in a way, he's kind of underrated.
He's underrated
as a lyricist.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like Beast of Burden.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I ran to the Bowery Electric where we are right now, actually, after your show, and sang
you did Salt
of the Earth. Yeah,
that's a good album, right? That's
yeah.
Is that Beggar's Banquet?
Beggar's Banquet.
That's a great one. Jigsaw puzzles on that too, right?
Yep.
That's one of my favorite ones.
It's one of their best.
Yeah.
Top 4.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Let It Bleed. You like that one?
Yeah.
Michael, as far as the book and Lou, in your mind, if he was alive today and you put it out with him in it, what would be his feedback to you?
Well, I wouldn't have, first of all, just because
you said that, but let's assume he did.
Here's the thing. I think what Lou tried to do in some ways with rock was to bring a literary sensibility, very different than Dylan's,
Yeah.
With Dylan's, but his was much more in a fiction, like Edgar Allan Poe and things, So having him be a character in literature, I think, is just in a way because of that. But
wait, expand on that. What do you mean by that?
Because he was
literary.
He brought a real literary quality to rock and roll, I think.
Yeah.
With characters and this kind of the way he told stories.
Yeah.
His delivery too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Berlin.
To have a book that kind of turns that around on him, I think, is okay. I actually sent it before I published it to Laurie Anderson.
What? Yeah.
And I've met. I didn't know her like I knew Lou. I knew Lou better than I know her. But she's wonderful and a great artist. And I just said, I wrote this book. Lou's a character. It's before you knew Lou, and I just wanted you to get it from me. And I just want you to, if you don't want to read it, I understand. If you do, I'd love it. If you want to tell me what you feel, if you don't, it's fine. I just know it came from love and respect for him because he was really kind to me. And she read it, and she kind of read it almost on its own terms because she said, I didn't know that, Lou. Because Lou had very different phases in his life.
Yeah.
I think she met him in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
So, but she appreciated it for what it was, and she thought it had some interesting Lou-isms in it.
Right.
So that was a good, I was happy to, get it to her.
Her response was
positive.
Was positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been, I mean, what was it like when you're finished with the book? How long did this book take you to write?
Oh, on and off, on and off, like it was 3 years, but I only wrote it when I was at home. When I was on location working during that time, which I was quite a bit, I didn't write. I only wrote when I was home and had nothing else to work on.
Right.
Because I would have to have a lot of stretches where I did every day at the same time, and the discipline of that. I couldn't do it in between other things.
And what would be your process? Waking up in the morning and just going in? Or
going in the morning. Morning. For just about 4 or 5 hours, and after that, it's the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And not all that 4 or 5 is actual writing. Some of it's just...
A lot of it's just sitting at it and they're staring at a page.
Being miserable.
Looking at your phone. And,
yeah.
No, I get it. But when you're first sending it out, how nervy of a process was that? Like to Laurie, to like publishers, to other friends, or would you read as you were writing to like Gary, for instance, and get feedback, or were you in a?
I didn't read
chain?
It to anybody until it was completely done, and then I gave it to my wife. She was the first one to read it, and she said the first thing she said was, she said, "It's very beautiful. I hope you don't change any of it."
Well, that's a great... Sounds like you married the right woman.
Oh, I know I did.
Man, lucky you, dude.
And then I sent it to Joyce Carol Oates, whose work I like a lot. And she, I wrote her a letter. I had met her a long time ago, and I wrote her an email. She writes books all the time. Like, she's like incredibly prolific, but yet she teaches at Princeton and Berkeley. Yet she answers emails in 10 minutes. I don't know how that works, but I asked her some advice about publishing.
Because if you want to get something done, have a busy person do it.
So, yeah, exactly. I asked her about publishers. She's done some work with Akashic, and she really likes them. And she said, "Listen, I'm in the middle of teaching. The holidays are coming up. I got a great paper. I'm probably not going to be able to read it, but you can send it if you want." The next morning, she had finished it,
right,
and gave me some feedback, which was really interesting. The next morning.
Well, I get that though,
Crazy.
Man. I started reading it last night after I performed, while I was backstage at the Bowery Electric, and I read through 6 chapters while everybody else was performing, dude.
So you're busy and you get stuff done.
Exactly.
And then you got to do your podcast the next morning.
Well, yeah. So like I get that, but that's what kind of book it is. It's just a page turner. It's like
I was saying more about her, that she's just incredible.
I know, but it is your book too. Yeah. I mean, she might be incredible too, but
she is incredible.
But if the book was like a chore to get through.
Chore. Yeah, that's true.
She wouldn't have got through it, dude.
That's true too. Maybe.
What was the feedback from her? And we'll go off the book. I'm just excited about it. So it's like
she had some interesting ideas about. I didn't change anything, but I did after the first draft. I added some material because the first draft was shorter than this.
That's funny.
The final thing. So and my editor, said the same thing, that it needed
fleshed out here.
There was a section that it needed to be expanded, and then I went back in and did it. But I didn't really change anything that's there. Just expanded a little bit.
That's cool. All right, well, let's pivot then.
All right, I want to go back to Lou. How you met Lou and how the relationship formed.
Well, I lived in the Village in the '90s, right, and so did Lou. And I would,
He was around.
He was around. So was like Ginsberg and Corso and Herbert Huncke. I mean, that Andy Warhol in the 80s, I would see. I mean, it was fantastic.
Did you see Andy Warhol?
Once I met him on the street by Grand Central Station.
That's insane.
He was very nice.
Lou loved Andy Warhol.
Loved him.
Fucking thought he was the smartest dude ever.
Loved him. But
yeah.
Rightfully so.
I never knew Lou, and I got cast in a movie called I Shot Andy Warhol, right?
Oh, yeah, I
Which
saw
is
that.
about Valley Salons. I played Undine in the movie. So I was at the Knicks game, Madison Square Garden,
Yeah.
and I see Lou on the escalator.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, this is my opportunity to talk to Lou. Because
Yeah.
Undine and him were friends. So, but the problem was Lou was really pissed off that they were making a movie about this crazy woman who almost killed
because
his
it was
dear Andy Warhol.
Glorifying her.
Because he hated her. She
Right.
was a pretty disturbed woman who actually contributed to Andy's death.
Well, of course, yeah.
So I see him on Lesker and go up to him, and I don't think he knew who I was. Not a lot of people did then, but some people did, whatever. And I said, hi, I'm a big fan. I'm an actor, and I got cast in this movie. I know you're not happy they're making it. It's called I Shot Andy Warhol. He goes, I think it's despicable that they're making a movie about that psychotic woman. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but nevertheless, I got cast, and I'm playing Undine, and he went, good luck, and he turned away from me.
So, yeah, like, that's
Right?
not going to work. I already know, like, I already know that's not going to work.
But
dude.
then he, like, looked over his shoulder at me. He looks over his shoulder, and he comes back, and he goes, listen, do your work, have a good time, and just know he was very, very funny.
See,
that was
that's
it.
the sweet part of Lou. Because there's that encapsulates Lou in a really great way.
That's
because,
the germ of the book.
Yeah, what do you mean?
You'll see when you read it.
Okay.
Because that made a big impression on me.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, there's that scene that you actually read last night.
Yeah.
Where it was like, yeah, you hit the first
Yeah.
thing with the character Matt was like Lou being hardcore.
Yeah.
And Lou was like that with me too, even though the very first time.
When did you meet him? What
Well,
year?
I met Lou. He brought, like, because I was auditioning for Peter Gabriel's Real World label. And I was like
Which
a young.
they signed you to.
They signed me, yeah, and I was a young singer songwriter, and then Peter Gabriel brought Lou Reed to my first audition gig.
Here?
And, yeah, at the Fez, and Lou Reed
Oh,
brought
I-
his DAT recorder, digital audio tape, and recorded the gig
At Fez?
At Fez, dude, I was like, you can imagine, I was a bass player like for most of the time. I just started singing and writing songs. And
How old were you?
I was 23 or 24, something like that. And I was just like terrified. I had started singing when I was 21. I started kind of late. And it was just overwhelming because I was a huge fan of Lou Reed, you know. And I had prepared myself mentally to play for Peter Gabriel, but like when the extra added weight of Lou was that all of a sudden thrown into the mix, it was like, this is too fucking much, y'all. Like, this is like, can somebody stop
Can
this?
we
Like,
reschedule?
can we you
And
know?
Lou had his tape recorder?
And Lou brought his tape recorder too, like to tape it so that Peter could take the tape back to England and play it for the people at Real World. You know, and I was working minimum wage jobs up until then, so it was like this was my break or else back to minimum wage jobs.
That's a lot of pressure.
It was a lot of pressure, dude. But it worked, and then we went and ate dinner down the street, and I was between Lou and Peter, and then Dolly Parton was in the booth next to us. And they
Where was it? Do you remember the restaurant?
I don't remember the name of the restaurant, but it was right down one block from the Fez. So, and that's when Peter said that Dolly Parton was his first choice for "Don't Give Up" to be the duet with him that Kate Bush ended up singing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they were both kind of blown away by Dolly Parton. And then Lou said to me, "Hey, you know, don't make sure you don't sign a publishing deal." And don't give away your publishing. And he was like, you know, it was like I was getting kind of big brothered by Lou in a way, like, you know, he was mentoring me to a degree.
So he liked what you did,
He
obviously.
did,
Because if
yeah.
he didn't,
No, he
would not fake it.
No. And then Peter was like, hey, we're actually trying to sign him to a publishing deal as well. So it was really instantly pretty awkward.
That's great.
Yeah. And then Lou was like, oh, I'm sorry. Because Peter and Lou were trying to be like friends too, or they were new friends, you know?
Right. They respected each other.
They respected
a lot,
each
yeah.
other a lot, yeah. But like Lou actually covered one of Peter's songs
for that album.
for the album of Scratch Your Back, Scratch.
He
covered
was it for Amnesty or something like that? Was it
I don't know. He covered Salisbury Hill.
Oh, really?
And I was talking to Lou like, because I was on that record too. I did Shock the Monkey, and Lou said, "Yeah, I had to change one line," and I was like, "What?" He goes, "Well, instead of you'd have thought I was a nut, I had to change it to you'd have thought I was a slut." So Lou changed that one lyric into
good.
slut, which is like genius, you know?
That's great.
Isn't that funny as hell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is wild.
One other Lou story I got was I was like sitting with him at a coffee shop, and then like this super hot girl comes up and like fanned out on Lou and was like, "Oh my God, I love you. And Lou was nice, you know, but he was just kind of like, it didn't matter who was fanning out on him. If it was a, you know, really attractive woman, she wouldn't get any more extra treatment than anyone else.
Yeah.
So he was still kind of like prickly with her. He was like, okay, like that. He was nice enough, but it wasn't, you know.
Right.
And then she left, and I was like, "Man, I almost used you to try to get her phone number." And he just looked up at me and goes, "Well, why didn't you?" And I was like, "You know what? You're right." And I went outside and I got her phone number.
That's great.
Michael, after that meeting at the Garden, when did you see him again?
I saw him at a party, but she still didn't really know who I was, and it was just after Magic and Loss. I know you love that record.
Oh, yeah,
Me too.
man.
That's a great one. And I just said, "Oh, I was listening to you today." And
Where was this?
this was at a party.
At a party.
At a premiere. But I didn't really become friends with him till after The Sopranos was on.
Mm-hmm.
It was around 2000. He had an album come out called Ecstasy, and he was playing at the Knitting Factory. So I got my manager. It was sold out, and I said, "Can you get me tickets?" So she called his publicist, a woman named
Annie O'Hyan.
Annie.
Shout out Annie O'Hyan.
So Annie got
My first publicist.
got me tickets. Really?
Yeah.
She was wonderful.
Yeah.
She was really nice to me. I haven't seen her in a while. But she got me tickets. So we get to the Knitting Factory, and they said, "Oh, you have seats in the..." There was a little balcony at the Knitting Factory.
Yeah.
There was seats with my name on it. I didn't expect that or anything. And then the show was fucking great. He played the Blue Mask, and it was tremendous. And then we were getting up to leave, and he said, "You know, Lou wants to see you backstage," which
Yeah.
I didn't know he knew who I was or if he knew I was there or anything. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay. And we went back, and he just came over and grabbed me and hugged me and was like, "I love your work." And it was to me, I mean, that was like my hero, you know. That's
Yeah.
a big deal. So, and then we kept in touch, and you know, he helped me out when I needed some of his posters for a movie that I directed, and he sent some rare.
What movie?
It's called The Hungry Ghosts.
Oh, right.
It's an indie movie, and he came to the first screening in New York, and we did a lot of benefits. We were both involved in the Tibet Fund and the Jazz Foundation. I still am, but and we hosted some of them, and he played at both of those events, and he was also into Buddhism and meditation, and he was working on a book about Tai Chi, and he was working on a book about meditation right before he died. My last email with him is about he asked me for some quotes about meditation for the book, and that was my last exchange with him.
What did he ask you for?
He just wanted like
your insight in it.
Yeah, how I see it, how it affects me. What do I get? You know, I think he was just compiling different people's experiences about it, and I think that's coming out. I think Lori finished it.
That's great.
Yeah.
What'd you say? Do you remember?
I think I said, you know, basically, Buddha's teachings can be distilled into three very simple concepts. One, do no harm. Two, cultivate virtue. You know, be good, do good. Yeah. And three is tame your mind. And that's what meditation is for me, is to working on taming the mind and, you know, the craziness and the negative things, and trying to get a hold on them so you can behave in a way in the world that represents you better or is kinder. And he wrote back very Very succinct.
Which was in fact also a very succinct response to your very succinct response. Yeah, well, that's something I work on every day. Is I use Ho'oponopono prayer mantra a lot. Do you know
Is that Hawaiian? No,
Hawaiian.
It is, right? I've heard that. Yeah.
I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. It's just it clears the programming. And it enables me to live from inspiration rather than from memory.
Memory or habit, right?
Yeah, or habit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's like any spiritual tradition, it's really about trying to be a better, kinder person. I mean, to me, if a religion doesn't have kindness in it, then I don't know what it's about. You know what I mean? If it's not making you a kinder human being, then I don't know what the deal is. You know what I mean? And I respect any religion that preaches that or aspires to that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, me too. That's what I'm all about.
Buddhism's not a theistic religion. Buddha wasn't a god. He was a man who attained a high level of what human potentiality is. And I like that it's not about, worshiping, it's respectful, of course, but it's not a theistic religion at all. Yeah.
What were you before Buddhist? Sorry.
Well, I was raised Catholic, but I wasn't. I was a spiritual seeker. In my 20s and early 30s, and investigated a lot of different spiritual disciplines, but nothing really stuck till Buddhism.
Interesting. What do you think it was about that stuck?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's just a rooted, authentic, practice that's been around 2,500 years, and probably before that, in other ways. But I liked it because there's a practice, there's a direct method on working with yourself. Yeah. It's not just, I would read books, other spiritual things, and I'd relate, and then the book was over, and then I'd be left to my own devices again. But with Buddhism, there's an actual, practice.
There's things you can do.
Yeah, method.
Yeah. And what's the method?
Well, meditation's a big part of it because
it's chanting too, right? Is it mantras? Or?
Mantras, not so much chanting. There's prayers, but mostly it's looking at your mind and watching how your mind works.
Becoming the witness of your thoughts.
Of your thoughts.
Metacognition.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was running and I had this insight, and I feel like it's an original insight, and I was writing about it, but. If you can if I'm afraid, then I can say, who's afraid? And then I can say, who's asking who's afraid? So I keep up-leveling the perch that I'm standing on. But I think of metacognition as a remote control car. If you're just identifying as your thoughts, then you're inside the remote control car and your subconscious is holding the remote.
And you're reacting
and
to everything.
And it's just chaos.
It's chaos.
Whereas if you're in metacognition and you're identifying as the witness of your thoughts, then you're the one holding the remote, and you can see the car.
Right.
And you can see what's coming.
Right. And your actions can be more positive.
Yeah, and hopefully. You have a window for reaction time.
Exactly. That's the whole shot right there.
The whole shot.
Yeah.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, basically.
One thing I do like about a god, though, is I like the energy of devotion. I really
there's a lot of devotion in Buddhism.
Oh, is there?
Actually, in Buddhism, in Tibetan tradition, which is what I practice, right?
Okay.
The devotion is to your teacher, even more than Buddha, because it's your teacher that's giving you the Dharma, the teachings in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And a lot of devotion, there's a lot in Buddhism. It's very, very important.
Yeah.
It's not without. It's just because it's not theistic. It's not without devotion. It's actually, especially in Tibetan Buddhism, very critical.
Right. What do you mean?
Well, because it's a sense of merging your mind with the mind of the teacher and the teachings themselves. The teacher, your Lama, is there's a lineage between him and the Buddha. The teachings have been passed from one teacher to the next to your teacher. So he is the Buddha.
Yeah.
In essence.
I feel like Lou is our teacher.
I think in a lot of ways he was teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, he inspired me to write a book.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I would have finished that book if it wasn't for Lou. He inspired you to make an album.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so that's a big deal. That's not to be, taken lightly.
No. I don't take him lightly.
No, neither do I. And I told him that when I met him backstage that time. I said, I said, I can't really even express what your music's meant to me. I mean, it's hard to really say. It's been with me so much of my whole adult life, I, in a very profound way, there as a companion, you know.
It's interesting because he is also this thing we've been talking about, like where the personality can outweigh the output, but his output is so extreme, and his personality is too, and people talk about it a lot, but yet he's not underrated. He's really not. He's seen as like the guy,
and he's not confused with the the persona, whereas Kerouac was, and Bukowski I think is that, but Lou morphed
into different personas. So like from like the coolest dude ever to the guy with the Steinberger guitar and what do you call it? The haircut with the long in the back,
the mullet.
The mullet. Party up front, business up front, party in the back.
I do think he's an underrated guitar player.
Oh yeah.
I love his solos.
Oh yeah, well, especially on the Velvet Underground when he would do those like noise jams.
I think his soloing's awesome.
Yeah,
I love listening to play guitar. He when he did the Jazz Foundation, he did this song "Night and Day," not the Cole Porter one, the one that Ray Charles does. Mm-hmm. He did it with a big orchestra, but he was playing really distorted, crazy loud, like Metal Machine type of guitar, and it was thrilling.
Yeah,
thrilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love Robert Quine. He was one of my favorite guitar
from
players.
Ohio too. I'm from Ohio. Yeah,
he was the shit.
Yeah,
I thought he was incredible. The Blue Mask, the work he does on that. And there's that live, I think it was in New Jersey, Waves of Fear with Quine and Lou. Quine's playing guitar, and it's fucking great.
Right on.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, really good.
So you got a bunch of like movies and television shows coming out too, right? Like anything like that?
I have a movie coming out, like a popcorn movie with Nicolas Cage called Primal, like a thriller type movie.
You say that like it's a bad thing. I love a popcorn movie starring Nicolas Cage.
I
don't know if there's anything I like more.
I do say it like it's a bad thing. Well, but it's not personal, right? This is personal. So I have a much more. This is like my kid.
Well, this is more your soul. Like your lineage is more like Kerouac. Like
my heroes. Yeah.
Like you're a writer of like you're like in that realm.
But I loved working on that movie.
To act. Too,
and I had a great time, and I loved working with Nicholas, and he was a trip and a half, and really fun, and very professional, and really good, and I enjoyed it a lot. And
well, he's a different kind of American hero.
He is. He takes his work really, really seriously.
Yeah.
And very prepared and very professional and really good.
What do you play in that?
I play a CIA agent.
Oh, okay.
He plays a big game bounty hunter, like a big game hunter.
A big game hunter?
Game, yeah.
Yeah.
Like exotic game hunter.
So he's the bad guy?
He's a bad guy, maybe a good guy.
Maybe a good
guy.
Yeah. You get cast a lot as the cop figure.
I get cops and robbers. A lot of drug addicts.
I like the drug addicts.
I've played a lot of drug addicts.
I mean, dude, you've played the most epic one. Fucking Chris
he was
from
an
Sopranos,
epic drug
dude.
Addict. He certainly was.
Dude, that was great.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I like playing stuff like, because it's so extreme, to play people that on the edge in such extreme, weird circumstance. It's always fun as an actor,
Yeah.
That character was a lot of fun to play.
Yeah.
Really fun.
What was that like?
Tremendous. It was a lot of those actors I had known from theater and independent movies.
Yeah.
I'd worked with a bunch of them, so it became like a real family thing. It was really cool. John Ventimiglia, who was there last night, he played Artie Bucco, the chef.
Right.
John and I met when I was 17 in acting school.
Oh, I saw him. He looked like Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, he looks a lot like Hunter.
Dude, oh my God. I was like, who's this guy that is exactly, because he had the cigarette holder
and the glasses
and the fucking yellow aviators and the bald head.
He's done some Hunter stuff, actually. some.
I mean, that's who should be cast as the next Hunter S.
No,
Thompson
he should.
in whatever Hunter S. Thompson.
He should.
I mean, just shout out to anyone making a Hunter S. Thompson thing. Cast. What's his name?
John
again?
Ventimiglia.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. And we were in theater companies together. We've done indies together. We still do. Mm-hmm. We did a movie in Lisbon with this Portuguese filmmaker. We've done 3 movies with him. So he's part of my, gang, since the beginning.
Right on.
And there's a bunch of them. So then, I was a teenager. We were in Lee Strasberg acting school, and that's when we met.
Yeah.
We're still colleagues and, collaborators.
So when did you start going to acting school?
Right after high school. I didn't go to college.
You skipped college. Me too. I never went to college either.
I went to, had 2 teachers there, and then I started meeting like him and other people, and we started doing our own theater. I started producing theater like not long after that, and directing theater and then acting. And one guy started writing. We started producing his plays, directing his stuff. That's how
What
it
made
started.
you decide, okay, I'm going to be an actor?
I just, was thinking, well, what do I want to do? I started reading a lot of plays in my last 2 years of high school.
So you were already kind of a literary person? Or
I was into it, but especially in my school library. I just started reading plays like Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller.
Fucking
and things
love
like
Tennessee
that.
Williams, too.
My favorite.
Yeah, he's the best.
And I wasn't sure if I wanted to act or direct. I didn't know, something in that. And I thought, well, maybe you should just go to acting school. And instead of college, I was going to go to State University, Albany. The night before I was supposed to leave, now it's September, after I graduated in June, I went up for orientation. My bags are packed. My parents had given me some cash to open a checking account. And I said, you know what, I don't think I want to go. They're like, you don't want to go? You're registered. We're leaving in the morning.
Did they pay a tuition already?
Probably a deposit or something. So
how'd you have the balls to change your mind?
I wasn't happy with it.
And your parents didn't go crazy?
No, they said, listen, I get it. They said, you have to, thank God they were so loving and supportive. They said, you have to follow your heart. I think you should go to college.
Wow.
So I said, all right, I want to go to Lee Strasberg School. They said that because they knew that was a good acting school. And I said, I'll start college in January. So I went to the city right after that September, and I went to NYU to look at their program. Mm-hmm. I didn't know where Strasberg was. Like, it wasn't like you Googled stuff or whatever. So I was walking back to the train station from the village. I was walking to Grand Central, wandering through the village, and then I see the Irving Place, which I never heard of, and then I turn the corner, I see this big flag, I swear to God, I didn't know where I was going. I was walking to the train.
That's funny as
Lee
hell.
Strasberg Institute, and I walked in, and that was the beginning.
See, that's why I believe in God, like shit like that. I'm just like, okay,
So I mean, God meaning what? Like
just go ahead.
Would you like? Because in Buddhism they talk about something called Dharmakaya, right? Which is
guidance,
the unborn potentiality of everything, the kind of unifying principle and things like that. The unborn sphere of phenomenon, they call it.
Okay.
The Dharmakaya.
That sounds like God to me.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's
God,
a lot of this shit is
semantical, right? Because I'm not talking God like there's this being who's like us and we're in his image. Like that doesn't,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I honestly,
who knows?
Who knows? I just feel like there's a sense of purpose and a sense of being witnessed,
of course,
and a sense of presence and a sense of a conversation I have ongoing with whatever that is. That if I didn't have that, I would just be like adrift.
Something higher, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I find this very curious, right? I mean, I respect anybody's beliefs and everything.
Yeah, me too.
And if you're atheist, you don't believe in God, I get it. You don't believe in anything higher. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
but people have no problem believing in the Big Bang, so there was nothing, and then there was some spark, and then it blew up, and everything. That's as weird as anything.
Bro, that's the weirdest.
But people accept that, like, well, that makes sense. I'm like, really?
And that's called that's called science.
That's called science.
And that's like when people like diverge those two things too. Like I don't believe in God. I believe in science. Science is the blueprint of God.
Of course.
It's like
I agree.
And that Big Bang thing. just like on the level of reason, and I agree. If you don't want to believe in anything, there's a lot of reasons I get why this seems like a godless universe. Like, you know,
horrors and
mass shootings,
yes, of
for
course.
instance. God bless all those, you know.
But that's
victims.
assuming that a God has the ability to intervene all the time and control everybody.
Yeah, and that we understand even what death is, because death might be like the biggest release in the world and the biggest gift possible. Like we just don't know. It seems tragic to us, but it might not be.
It's not to the Tibetan Buddhists.
Yeah,
not at all tragic.
Right.
They have no fear of it.
Exactly.
They're actually, they look at it like changing clothes.
Yeah, and I'm with that. I think that's actually a real, you know, and again, that goes with witness consciousness. The more you like identify with the witness consciousness, I feel like that is that unending thing that never ends and has no beginning. Like, if you think about it, there's a certain aspect of your consciousness that's been the same, exact same, unchanging since when you were 7 years old till now. And,
that's what Buddhists believe. That it's not even before, but other lives and future lives.
Well, that's where I'm going. I'm just saying, like, we can kind of look back to 7 or whatever, or 4 or 5. But yeah, I think it's like unending, and I think as soon as you die, that's like the more you're resonating on that unending stream, the more death will just be seamless to you. Like you might not even notice.
Right.
You know, like
if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, but that Big Bang thing, yeah, like it's like, dude, like just on the level of reason, something can't come from nothing.
Right.
And that's the whole theory of the Big Bang, is something came from nothing. Right. It's like, no.
Well, the Buddhists believe in the Big Bang, but that there's been infinite number of Big Bangs.
Yeah.
So the Big Bangs, and then it'll eventually collapse, and there'll be another one, and that's been eternity and will be eternity.
And that's the movement of God, if you ask me.
Yeah,
okay,
that makes sense.
To me, it's like, okay, there might have been a Big Bang, but you know what? You know, who created the Big Bang?
Nothing can come from nothing.
Exactly.
Something can come
it just
nothing.
Goes. It just gets. Yeah. Anyway.
Or when people say, "Well, it's all randomness," and it's like, actually, it's complete precision to think of like evolution and all of that.
Look at your hand.
It's so precise.
There's randomness going on here. It doesn't seem random to me
at all.
You know, and yeah, exactly.
It's actually as precise as anything.
It's crazy precise.
Like in Buddhism, they say, my view is as big as the sky, but my actions are as fine as a grain of sand. So like every action...
Wait, say that again?
My view is as big as the sky, but my actions are as fine as a grain of sand, because this is science, too. And this is Buddhism. This is karma.
This is the blueprint
every
of God.
action has a reaction.
Yeah.
That's karma.
Yeah.
That's science, too.
Uh-huh. It's all the same.
Everything matters.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like what we can like live within temperature-wise is like what, like 15 degrees.
Nothing.
Like nothing. And there's like supposedly a sun 400 gazillion billion miles away that's heating us just in this perfect, like within 20 degrees.
Right.
Okay, maybe 100 degrees radius that we can exist in. Like, that seems chaotic to you.
Right.
That doesn't seem chaotic to me.
Perfection. Yeah.
That's like you know. But back, so you walked into Lee Strasberg, and like, how do you get into that? Like
they interview you.
They interview.
They didn't audition you. They interviewed you.
They interviewed
and
you.
wanted to see where your head was at. And I started taking classes, and I had some good teachers. But really, what happened was, and I always tell people who tried, because they always ask, how do you be an actor? I said, go to acting school and meet. There's people that you relate to and are inspired by. Stay with them. You know. I'm sure it's similar with music, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you find your colleagues, you find people of like mind, and you know.
Or they find you.
You
got to resonate on a certain frequency of need, I find.
Yeah, it's like people always say, it's all who you know. I said, no, it's who knows you. It's not, people don't give you jobs because you're a nice guy. They know you based on your work and your ability. And if they respect that, then they might want to work with you. It's not, I'm going to do you a favor because you're my cousin's friend.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, people get confused about that.
Yeah, or they say, oh, it's luck. I'm like, well, it's not like they pick your name out of a hat to do a movie. You know what I mean? It's luck if you don't get hit by a bus on the way to the audition. You know what I mean? But like, it's not like we're going to put 30 actors in here and we're going to pick a lucky one. I mean, luck, I don't know. I mean, the people that seem to work a lot are ones who are really committed and don't get discouraged and go on and work hard and are good.
Yeah. Will you manifest your luck? so to speak.
Exactly. Luck,
By
whereas
vibrating. Opportunity
opportunity meets ability, right? Or
Y-
preparedness meets opportunity
Yeah.
is luck. That's what they say.
Yeah. Are you conscious of like, do you have like manifestation practices? Because I'm like sort of I do like. Have you ever heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
He wrote this book called "You Are the Placebo." I think I was trying to tell you about this when we first met, actually.
Yes.
I don't know what, yeah.
You did.
I did, didn't I?
So what is the practice like in a nutshell?
Well, he's got these like guided meditations on YouTube, which, by the way, you can like learn every single thing in the world on YouTube.
Yeah, you
nowadays.
can. I know.
And it's kind of like revolving around manifesting. He healed his spine that was supposedly impossible to heal.
Wow.
He was like a triathlete, got hit by a truck, and healed his spine through the power of his mind. Mm-hmm. The fact that placebos exist and work is proof that our minds can heal us.
Right. Like the word placebo effect.
Yeah.
Well, a placebo is not supposed to have an effect if it's a placebo, but it does have an effect.
Right.
So what does that mean?
It means that we're powerful.
Right.
Really.
The mind
is powerful.
Yeah.
So do you have any practices like regarding that kind of stuff, like manifestation practices? How do you manifest
purification? There are purification meditations in Buddhism.
And they clear the way. That's what Ho'oponopono is.
Yeah, there's that, and
what
there's
are those?
some. They're meditations. They're visualizations and meditations. They have to be. You have to get an empowerment to practice them, which means there's like a ritual where your teacher kind of says, "Okay, you can practice this now," because some of these things are they're mystical, and some of them can be used for
Nefarious purposes.
nefarious, or Buddhism always has to have an intention of compassion behind it. It can't be, I want to meditate to be rich so I can be, get a big, you know what I mean? It's like,
It's purpose-driven motivation.
but and there has to be. There's nothing wrong with healing yourself. That's
I want to
great.
get rich so I can help people.
Something like that.
Something
Or I
like
want to
that.
win. I want to make this much money so I can give it to this charity or give it to something.
Yeah.
So, but the view they talk about in Buddhism, view always has to encompass compassion for ideally all sentient beings, right? I'm talking the tenets of Buddhism. I'm not saying I do this or I've realized. I'm not. There are lamas and practitioners that who are very amazing.
Right.
I'm a beginner, so
Yeah.
I'm talking in broad terms.
Well, you're not that much of a beginner, right? You've been doing this for a lot of years.
Yeah, but still, compared to like
Right. I'm not saying you're like the highest.
my teacher's the 8th reincarnation of the Garchen Rinpoche, so
Wow.
he's been around for 1,000 years.
That's amazing.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's about 85.
Where's he at?
Well, he has a center in the desert in Arizona, but he travels a lot and teaches. He's not going to be traveling much more because he's getting very old. But he was born in Tibet. When the Chinese invaded, he spent 20 years hard labor in prison in Tibet, and then finally was released and started teaching in India
Wow.
and in the West. And he's a monk, but high lama, and great.
How'd you find him?
Through the kind of Buddhist world, just started going to teachings here, and people turned me on to different,
Okay.
you'd start to delve in and paths
Right.
open up and stuff like that. But,
Yeah.
Basically what I'm saying is all that stuff,
When you're ready, the student or the teacher finds
absolutely, that's what they say.
you. Yeah.
But it really has to be, in Buddhism, things should be rooted with a sense of big view of compassion for all beings. Right. But there are very specific, there are medicine Buddha meditations when people are sick, and that involves visualization, some mantras, meditations, and stuff like that. There's lots of that stuff in Tibetan Buddhism.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And where do you practice all this stuff within a group?
Sometimes
settings?
when I can, there's retreats, where I did one in February, a Yamantaka, it's called, retreat, which was a closed retreat. Practice goes 24/7. You sleep in shifts in the temple, and you don't speak outside of whatever scriptures you're reciting or mantras you're saying, and no phones, no internet. You can't. You surrender your phone, and it's closed. You don't leave.
What a relief that is, dude.
It's fantastic.
I do that every single day because I practice hot yoga every day, and I like turn my phone off for at least 2 hours every day.
Talk about habit, right?
Dude, it's the
my
best.
God.
Oh, to get away from, or to, like, yeah.
What a habit it's become, right? And I lived so much of my life without it.
It's such an addiction.
I didn't have a cell phone until I was like 32.
I make sure, like, after yoga, I walk home. I don't turn it on until I'm home. But as soon as I'm home, I'm back. I'm back in the mix, checking Instagram, doing all the nonsense.
Well, we do business on it,
But
right?
exactly, because like it's business too.
And your
so
business doesn't really end. It doesn't have a work day.
No, so that's why I have to like. But at least I know I'm gonna have like at least 2 hours a day with no phone, and that's like hugely mentally healing. I recommend that.
Because you have various projects in various stages of development that you're always checking in on and all that stuff.
Like on the phone, yeah.
That's how it is.
So when you go to Strasbourg School, how many years was that for?
I was there for 2 years, and then my teacher left, and I was with her for another 3-4 years.
Yeah.
But I started working about 4 years into it. I was 21. I got a play.
Is that when you got Scorsese? No.
That was 2 years after that. 21, I got a play that didn't pay. I had tried. I was trying to audition out of the trade papers for plays and independent. I couldn't get anything. Finally, I get this play.
Were they seeing you as talented when you were like at that school? Like, were they like, dude, you got this shit? My
teachers, well, they wouldn't go that far, but you know, I think the people who were serious and who had some talent gravitated towards each other.
Right.
Like I knew Ventimiglia was talented when I met him, and I saw him work in class. I'm like, he had something that most of the students didn't have.
Yeah.
You know, you could just see. He's like, this guy's good.
Or as they say, real recognizes real.
I hope so. I mean, but I certainly saw him. I'm like, this guy's good. There was a handful of people that.
Who was that?
Ventimiglia, who the Hunter S. Thompson
guy.
Oh,
okay, yeah, right.
So, so I did this. I got this play, and the play got a lot of attention before it opened. There was an article in the Times about it because it was based on a real story. It involved the Westies and Hell's Kitchen and stuff. I was the lead, and it was off Broadway. It was a big deal. 3 days, the third performance. After the third performance, they fired me.
What?
Whoa. What was the play called?
Half Deserted Streets, written by a guy who eventually won the Academy Award for Crash.
Interesting title for something that deserted you.
Deserted me. Yeah, I got fired. I mean, I deserved to get fired. I did not know how to work with it. I didn't know how to work with the director very well. I didn't really respect the director, but I didn't know how to. Now I can work with all kinds of directors. Even if I don't get along, I know how to give them what they want and protect myself. Back then I didn't know that. So I resisted him, and I wasn't they fired me.
You were young.
It was devastating though.
Yeah.
Because I was so happy to finally have a job after 4 years.
Right. That must have hurt.
Yeah.
Told your folks I got a gig.
They came to the opening weekend. I did, and then they replaced me.
That must have been rough.
It was really rough.
Must have been a rough couple months after
Horrible.
that.
Horrible.
Yeah.
In retrospect, did they do you a favor by firing you?
In retrospect, I could say yeah, because I still had a career, but I mean, I don't know, it didn't feel like it at the time.
Right.
But I deserved it. I admit that.
So and then you how'd you get in Goodfellas?
I had done a couple of indies.
Which, by the way, is like one of my favorites.
It's a great movie.
It's one of my favorites.
Another student had an audition for an agent around that after I did this play. So we were working on a scene in class. He goes, "Can we do our scene for the agent?" And I said yes, and the agent signed both of us. Started sending me out, and I got a part. My first movie was a movie called Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman, directed by John Avildsen, who did Rocky. Mm-hmm. And I had one line, which they cut because I was so fucking scared. I'd never been in front of a camera.
Well, dude, it's hard to do one line, too. I have experience with that. I was in this movie called Hell's Kitchen, and I had one line.
It's hard, right?
Not a good movie. But it was like also, to do one line.
It's really hard.
There's nothing to do. There's no character. You just have to say a line.
What was your line, Joe?
I mean it. Like, it was to Rosanna Arquette, and it was about going into an AA meeting. We were supposedly in a band together in this movie, and I was like, I mean it. This, you know, like, I mean it. You got to come with me or I'm out. Something like that. It was,
And what was your line?
Hey, I'm gonna be a star.
hey, and yours was prophetic.
And it was horrible. They cut it because I had never been in front of a camera. That was a whole other
karma.
thing.
That's
That's
karma
cr-
for you. That was your line. That was
Yeah,
cut.
dude.
It was film. It was
talk
a
about
big
it.
movie film camera with
Yeah,
film
it
in the,
freaked you out.
And I was like,
Hey, I'm gonna be a star.
horrible. And the guy, we did the rehearsal, and he goes, "Hey, you with that line, you got to give me something, or you're."
Oh my god.
He was not a nice guy. Not nice to me, at least. But I'm in the movie, but I don't say the line. You can see me in the movie. It's kind of funny.
Interesting.
And then I did
I
two
think I've
other
seen that movie.
little indies, and then I auditioned for Goodfellas, which was a big deal because he was a big hero of mine.
Yeah.
I read the book that it was based on. I auditioned for the casting person, and she said, "I want you to come and audition for Marty." So I knew a lot about his movies, and I knew he liked improvisation. So in my audition, I did a lot of improvisation, and he liked it. And
What'd you do?
they had us read Pesci's character. They had everybody read scenes, and I thought I was auditioning for Pesci's character.
In the card scene?
I
or
don't
the-
forget which scene. Maybe in
Okay.
the scene that I was in.
Yeah.
But we all read, and I knew the character because I read the book. I thought,
Uh-huh.
and in the book, the character's like 21, Pesci's character.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Yeah, he's much younger.
I didn't know that.
So I thought I was auditioning for that,
Oh, okay.
and he was really cool. And then they said they got this part, Spider. And then I look in the book; it was like 2 pages in the book. I'm like, really? That's it? Like that's how dumb, how like stupid. I'm like, that's it? All right. I get. I haven't done shit, and
Right.
I'm already.
But there is something to that. Like I remember because when I got signed to Peter Gabriel's label, I had a similar ego vibe. Like, just I felt like I belonged. There's some
You have
weird
to,
thing, like ego beyond my station.
But you have to because it's so hard to get started
Exactly.
in
It's like
music or
survival.
acting.
Yeah.
You have to almost delude yourself that you're so.
You have to have delusions of grandeur.
You
You
have to.
really fucking do.
There's
That's
a rejection so much.
and it's like you definitely have to fantasize yourself into that kind of star position.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You have to be so deluded to think that when they see me,
Right.
they'll get it. Because it's so. I auditioned. I don't know,
Because then you end up manifesting it. Because look what happened.
but I auditioned 100 times at least before I got a job.
That's
So that's so much rejection.
Yeah.
You have to be so deluded.
Yeah.
So there is an ego there,
Yeah.
but that's okay if it gets you through.
So what was it like when you land that part with those guys making arguably one of the greatest movies of all time? Like
was great.
That's like talk about like hitting it out of the park.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it was.
dude, like-
It was a big deal for me to be with like De Niro and Scorsese. Those guys
yeah.
were huge to me.
Yeah.
And Marty, to his credit, and I'm forever indebted to him, treated me like an actor and gave me a lot of respect and basically said, those scenes were improvised. And he just said, just bring the drink over to him. He's going to say something and just go with it. Every take was different.
Right.
And then what I did was, I was very inexperienced in film. Now I'm very experienced, and looking back, I'm like, I kind of can't believe I had the balls to do this. What I did was, there was a bar.
Uh-huh.
I'm a waiter, right? But the
Yeah.
bar was facing away from the card table, which means I would have my back to the players, to the actors when I'm making drinks. And I said to the prop guy, I said, no, the bar has to be here, so I have to be watching them at all times.
Right.
I want my face on camera.
I wasn't thinking that. I'm thinking in terms of the character. I'm saying, well, the character's got to watch them because you don't want them to wait for a drink. They're gangsters. You
Yeah.
got to be on pins and needles.
Right.
And they let me do that. And Marty said, yeah, do what he says. And then I said, I want to reset the props after every take, which I would never do that now. I don't know. And Marty said, yes, let him do it. Let him reset the props on the table. And there's a shot in the movie of me standing behind the bar looking at the guys.
Unbelievable. Why would you never do that now, and why did you decide to do that then?
Because it's a prop guy's job.
Oh, I see.
He's really responsible if there's a fuck up. and it's on camera and the director doesn't notice it, it's the prop guy's ass.
Oh,
so
I see.
he's letting some 22-year-old kid who's never really done movies take responsibility for his job.
And
I didn't think it that through.
Did
at
you
all.
want to do that because then it was like, oh, I'm in character?
He told me when I got there, he said, the only thing I asked, treat the guys like the character on and off camera, which was very liberating because now I didn't have to be this guy in awe of my acting heroes.
That is liberating.
I had a job to do, which was take care of the table.
Yeah.
And that's why Marty's so good, because now you're not conscious of being Michael, the actor with the greatest actor in movies. You're the waiter, and you're dealing with simple realities, which as an actor you need to be rooted in to be truthful and be free.
Dealing with simple realities.
Yeah, and be free, not feel pressure. Feel like this guy is treating me with respect like an actor. I feel comfortable. I'm going to take chances. I'm going to take risks.
Yeah.
When they're mean or they shut you down, you close up because you're very vulnerable as an actor.
Yeah, you clam up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's you. You don't have something, it's not.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's you.
Yeah.
So when people are disrespectful or not patient, you close up. And you don't take chances. Your performance is not going to be as good.
Yeah.
In the back of your mind, did you still have that fear of getting fired because of the previous gig?
Probably. I don't remember that, but probably. But a really funny thing happened. The second day was the second scene when I get killed, right?
Right.
So the stunt is I get shot, I go flying in the bar and hit the ground. And I said, they had a stuntman there, and I said to Marty, I want to do the stunt, which I don't do that anymore. That's a stupid thing.
Why?
Because they're stuntmen.
Because you can get hurt.
But when you're young, you think that's important. I don't know, whatever. But I said, I want to do the stunt, and he was happy about that.
Yeah.
So
well, it makes it look more real, probably.
Depending on how you're shooting.
And what was the stunt?
Was me getting shot.
Getting shot.
Fall, kind of jerking backwards, hitting the bar.
Yeah.
And then hitting the ground.
So that was hitting the bar.
Yeah, they had to pad my back up. I had to go backwards.
Uh-huh.
But the only thing the fuck up was I was bringing a drink to the table when I get shot, and the prop guy didn't replace my glass with a breakaway. So when I do the stunt. The blood explodes. They have blood packs and squibs.
Wow.
I hit the ground. The glass breaks, and two of my fingers get sliced open.
Wow.
So I'm lying on the ground, and everyone goes, "Don't move, don't move," because somebody saw what happened. And everyone comes over and like, "Don't move." My hands, and I look up and I see De Niro looking down at me like, like, "Ooh, that looks bad."
Oh, really?
So they rush me. The PA gets me in a car, and they drive me. We were in Maspeth, Queens. They drive me to hospital.
Uh-huh.
And I walk in, and I said, I cut my hand. I'm making a movie. Like, shut up, quiet, code blue, stat. They bring a stretcher because I have 3 bullet holes with blood everywhere.
Oh my God.
They think I was shot. They think I'm about to die.
Right.
They wheel
That's
me into
funny
the
as
operating room, won't listen to anything I'm saying, and they start cutting my shirt, and they see the squibs and the wires, and I'm like, I told you I'm doing a movie. They thought it was delirious.
That's crazy.
Said I'm doing a movie. I cut my finger. Like, they put some tape. They're like, we'll stitch you up. Go sit in the corner for like 3 hours.
Oh, man.
And then I went back and shot it again a couple of times.
Oh, really?
But that first take's in the movie.
That's funny as hell, dude.
It was really funny.
They thought you got shot. And
you would have thought, anybody would have thought that, because literally there were 3 bullet holes with a shitload of blood.
Yeah.
And it looked like, and it was kind of a rough neighborhood wherever we were.
Nobody
was.
Nobody wheeled you in or took you in. Who took you in?
The PA drove me, and we got to the hospital, and then I was talking to whoever was outside, and then they put me on a stretcher.
Oh, right, I see.
Like they wouldn't listen to what I was saying. They wouldn't listen to the guy. They just thought I was about to die.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. It really was.
Did you learn anything? Did you ask De Niro or Pesci any questions and learn anything from them, or was there not much contact?
I didn't want to relate to them as actors because Marty said not to.
I see.
But I watched a great deal, and what I learned from De Niro was when you're on set, right? Because there's the set, right? So there's a room that's set up to look like a card room. Then outside of that is like the crew, like there'll be like the other camera parts and the prop cart and the craft service table, which is right offset. But when you are on set and the lights are there, you conserve your energy. And De Niro, once in between takes, he would walk away from the set because the set is very tense, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of energy there.
Yeah.
He'd walk away. He wouldn't stand there and make small talk, make jokes, dissipate his energy. And when he'd come back and they were ready to shoot or lining up the shot, he'd start dealing with his props. Like he'd pick up his drink or he'd pick up his cigarette lighter or the cards. Like it looked like someone really conserving energy and keeping things very kind of so all the energy would go towards the performance rather than be dissipated in the daily mundane things that could take, because it's shooting's long days, you know.
Yeah.
So you might do a close-up of a big important scene 12 hours into your day. So you better have stuff in the tank.
Damn, that's insanely awesome to hear. That's like really, you could apply that across your whole life on so many different levels. Because I box and I remember like every time I would spar, I would just get so tired, and I would ask my trainer like, dude, why? Like, I can run 5 or 10 miles. Like, I trained hard. I could, like, jump rope for 5 rounds or whatever. Like, but when I would spar...
For 1 minute.
Dude, one round, I'd be, like just out of gas. Like, it'd be crazy. And it didn't make any sense because I was definitely doing enough cardio for that not to be the case. And he said, it's because you're all tense and you got to relax between... But like you have to find moments of relaxation even within sparring. Right. If you're always tensed up, like that wastes so much energy. So when you said that, it just
that makes a lot of sense.
Brought me right to that.
I mean, like with musical performance, right? When you're going to do a show, right?
Exactly.
That space from the time you get on stage, once you hit the stage, right? There's it's not just you playing music. You're going to a place, right?
Yeah, of course.
Here.
Yeah.
And there's you're not gonna like fuck around in between. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like there's a seriousness to that space.
Absolutely.
That, it's not your actions between songs are not superfluous. There's not I think your body knows after doing it for so long that this is special. Moments. It's not just ordinary time.
No, and you can tell before a show and everything like that as well. Like there's this very uncomfortable energy to that.
Do you like to eat before a show or no?
I mean, yeah, I like to just make sure I'm taking really good care of myself. In terms of everything, I like to make sure I get a really good night's sleep.
But right before you go on, you don't like.
No, I don't want to be full.
No.
But
a couple of hours before.
Yeah, just so that's not a factor.
So you're not digesting.
I don't want to be hungry either. And
right.
I definitely want to make sure, that, all my energy's in line. I mean, I think about energy all the time lately, especially when you get into your older, or not that, we're not really old, but middling years or whatever, where it's energy is such a factor across all walks, and even when you consider the condition of narcissistic personality disorder and those type of beings that feed off of the energy of other people, the fact that there's a lot of vampire consciousness out here too. And are you familiar with any of Napoleon Hill's work, Outwitting the Devil or Think and Grow Rich?
I've heard of him. I don't know his stuff.
Yeah, he's from 1930s or whatever, but in Think and Grow Rich, he has a whole chapter on sexual transmutation. You ever heard anything about that? The concept, now kids are calling it NoFap, where it's no porn, no masturbation, conserving your energy, and using sexual transmutation to do things
creative,
to be refocus all that energy towards creativity. And because that energy needs to express itself.
Right, of course.
So,
that's a very ancient principle.
Well, that's true,
that's tantric practice.
Exactly.
Things like that.
But now the kids call it NoFap.
Yeah.
Which
it's
is
a straight edge without,
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's a different version of straight edge, right?
Yeah.
Well, think of boxers. In Raging Bull, there's
Tyson.
that great scene when he dumps the ice water on his heart on, and his wife wants to have sex, and he's, or Rocky, women weaken legs. Miles said that. Miles Davis said, he goes, you can't come and play.
Yeah.
You can't come and then go play music.
Well, yeah, if you hold it and maintain it, there's just a force with what you're working with that doesn't exist otherwise.
Right.
You know.
And if you, like he was saying, the day before a performance, he couldn't have an orgasm because it would just take way too much energy away.
Takes away the fire.
Right, especially like you said, as you get older.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
He performed till he was, he performed for a long time.
Well, there's that Mantak, I forget his name.
Mantak Chia.
Exactly. He wrote that multi-orgasmic male.
Yeah, the Tao of sexual
transmutation. He's got like actual rule book. Like if you're in your late 40s, you're only supposed to, like, let's say, let it out once every month.
Right.
That's it.
Good luck.
Dude. It's easier said than done.
It's all easier said than done, but they're good things to, I think, start to think about and try to implement, just for health in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you age, when you're young, your resources are like limitless, and as you get old, they're limited, right? You have to just conserve, and
well, you understand the value of energy, and like the fact, like what you're talking about, like De Niro, just really focused on energies and like
that's what it looked like to me.
Super sensitive, yeah.
He took exactly, and I think so. When you get older, you're more wise, hopefully, and you've learned and experienced stuff. So you want to have the energy to be able to use that wisdom and experience in your work, right? And that you can't do that if you're dissipated by other stuff, or you can, but it might not be as effective, right?
What about Joe Pesci? Did you observe him in any kind of capacity?
He was a lot more. He was very funny. He was joking around all the time.
He's more of a card, right?
He's more. He was. He was very kind, and he was so good in that movie.
Yeah, well, how is he so menacing?
He gets it. I think he gets it, and he was been around it. I think he grew up. He was part of the Jersey Boy. That movie. Mm-hmm. He knew the Four Seasons when they started, and whoever the wise guy was involved with them. I think he come from that Newark, New Jersey. He wasn't a gangster, but I'm sure he knew them back then. He was around that world, so he understood that, mentality and what that edge between menace and breaking balls and intimidation, but also weird humor. He got that.
Yeah.
He's really good at it.
Yeah. So what was it like? How did you end up working with Spike Lee?
Well, he was doing a movie called Jungle Fever, and he was casting it right at the time Goodfellas was screening, because he was friends with Scorsese. So he saw an early screening of Goodfellas. And a lot of people from Goodfellas wound up being in Jungle Fever because there were a bunch of Italian Americans, and we just hit it off. And I've done 6 projects with him over the years.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Because he's another great director, a great American director.
And another guy who gives you a lot of wants you to be creative, wants you to come up with ideas, and he's been a great influence and somebody I'm grateful, to have in my life. Yeah.
And you wrote for him too?
Yeah. Well, there was I wrote a movie called Summer Sam with a writer named Victor Colicchio, who's really very talented writer, and it's actually Victor's idea, and he wrote the first draft of it, and then we started collaborating on it. And originally I brought it to Spike for me to direct, and Spike said he would executive produce it, but we couldn't get a deal with me as a director, and the project kind of stalled, and it was dead for a while. And then Spike said, how would you feel if I directed it? And I was like, which kind of shocked me because
it wasn't usual for him.
Yeah, at the time, up until then, most of his stuff was really focused on, African American characters and issues and stuff like that. But they were also very New York movies, most of them. Mm-hmm. Really New York. And he grew up in the 70s, and I was like, actually, that makes total sense.
Right.
So it was a blessing.
Yeah. That is a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We screened it last year at the Metrograph. Like I think it was an anniversary screening. I hadn't seen it projected in a long time, and it was, you never know how stuff ages, and it was really fun to see it. And
how did it age?
I thought it aged really fucking well.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, I appreciated it a lot more now with some distance, because when something comes out, there's so much pressure, and then the reviews, and people hate it, and some people like it, and then after a while, there was a lot of young people there who were maybe not even born when it was released.
Yeah.
And there was a teenager who he's a senior in high school, wants to be a filmmaker, and he was just like, his mom took him, and he came up to me after. He was just like, this is the best movie I ever saw. I mean, there's a lot there's so much life in that movie that Spike put. I mean, there's this great montage to Baba O'Reilly, and and they play the whole song from the beginning to end. It's loud and it's colorful. I love it. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think Spike did a really good job.
What'd you learn from Spike?
Loyalty. Because he said to me when we did Jungle Fever, he goes, "We're going to work again." And I was like, yeah, and you hear that and stuff like that. And he
meant it.
He meant it. That's big in this business because it's really rare.
Yeah.
And when I wanted to direct it, there was a woman who was the production designer from I Shot Andy Warhol, another indie that I did, and another woman who was the DP on I Shot Andy Warhol and the same other indie. And I wanted to work with them, and Spike hired both of them. He usually worked with a lot of people that were, sometimes he would hire from people who had, starting with him and moving up the ladder through his movies. And I recommended them, and he hired both of them. And when I thought, that's really cool, like, because he somehow believed in my vision of it. Mm-hmm. He also shot most of the movie was set in the Bronx, written for this particular cul-de-sac street that's right on the water in Throg's Neck over there. He shot on that block.
Wow.
He shot on that block where it was written with people in that neighborhood as extras and stuff.
Yeah.
That was cool.
That is cool.
He said, it doesn't look like that anymore. It's better if we shoot it in Brooklyn on this street. It's easier to get it's like, no, we shot on that block.
Yeah, because he believed in the spirit of it.
Yeah. It's
interesting.
Great.
Yeah.
And that's Spike Lee. He was a big director at the time. It wasn't about his ego. I know what to do. He's like, all right, what are these guys thinking of? Let's make it happen. Yeah. And then he made it his own after. It was great.
I loved Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X.
Phenomenal movies.
Yeah. You're in Malcolm X.
I have one little scene as a reporter.
Yeah.
Do the Right Thing, I saw the day it opened on a Friday in New York. I had not met Spike. I had not been in his movies. And I went to see it in the Village. And there was a lot of tension because people were afraid there were going to be race riots, that it was going to incite people to violence.
I remember, energy like that.
And you could feel it because it was like a 7:00 show, Friday night, the first day. And we were in the audience, packed, mixed people, races and stuff. And we left that theater more united than when we went in. And I thought, that's powerful.
That is powerful.
We left that theater with more understanding of each other. That was beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's still my favorite of his.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's just so colorful and just bursts off the screen with life.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, have you ever heard of this writer named Dr. Gabor Mate? Because he wrote this book called In the Realm of the Hungry Ghost. So I was wondering, because you have that movie that you direct.
Hungry Ghost it's a realm in Buddhism.
Yeah, okay.
That, there's the animal realm, right?
Yeah.
So they say in Buddhism, it's actually very difficult to get a human body.
I bet it is.
That a human body is the result of cultivating merit in past lives, because there's much more insects.
If you want a dog body, those are a dime a dozen.
Or insects.
But a human
There's way
body?
more insects. And then if you think about all the world systems throughout the universe.
So wait, I was trying to make a joke and cut you off a little bit. What were you saying about
but that's true.
The human body thing?
The joke you said is true.
Oh, okay.
There are more insects and more animals.
But yeah, 'cause I wasn't listening to what you were saying though about the human well. I was like thinking about this joke.
Because you have, the faculties to achieve enlightenment in the human body, whereas animals don't.
Oh, I see.
Right.
So it's a rarefied gift. This is what bugs me about apathy. Like when I see like apathetic people, I'm just like, man, this life every day feels like an opportunity to me. Like now, but
Yeah, and
You know.
it is, but sometimes it's hard to, like you said, before, like break out of the habitual patterns, like that reset that we try to get to. But sometimes it's really hard.
yeah, and there's a lot of brainwashing going on that limit humans.
Yeah, and listen, we're artists is a different kind of existence.
Yeah.
You're not working 9 to 5.
No, we're
and,
very lucky.
driving.
That's true.
Whatever it's, and feeding your family and coming home and dealing with, it's like
100%.
it's not easy to,
It's not.
step out of it. People, and
That's true.
it's hard.
Yeah,
It's not
and
easy.
it's getting harder all the time. But there are more resources now, like with like educating yourself through YouTube and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. So yeah, Gabor Mate, his book, I think that's how you say his name, In the Realm of the Hungry Ghost. That's all about addiction. So is that where the hungry ghost? What's the
Yeah, the movie it deals with addiction in a lot of ways.
Oh,
The
okay.
hungry ghost realm, these are these beings with very big stomachs and very little mouths and necks, but they have huge appetites. But because their mouth and neck is so tiny,
Yeah,
they can't consume what their appetites desire.
that's
right?
like addiction in a nutshell.
That's addiction in a nutshell.
Yeah,
And those are very ancient concepts. So I don't know if they were about addiction or just greed or just desires that can't be fulfilled, but they are addictive. Yeah.
and what drew you to that concept, or was that the name of the script, or
That was the name of the movie. I wrote that just as I started going to Buddhist teachings. I didn't know a lot about Buddhism then. It was a lot of it's about spiritual confusion more than anything.
right?
But a lot of it's about addiction based on just things that I've seen and people
Right.
I've known and watched and saw things happen.
Do you deal with addiction at all, or are you free and clear of that?
I think we all deal with it on some
Yeah,
level.
that's true.
I've dealt with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Yeah. I've dealt with it.
Tell me later.
Yeah, I've dealt with it.
Well, man, we've been going a while, so we should probably wrap it up because I don't want to exhaust you.
I have one.
Did we
question.
start yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think let's see what time. Yeah, we started. I think.
Are we
Someone,
rolling?
We've been rolling.
someone who we've been going for like an hour 45. Someone who helps us sometimes with research had one question for you, and he asked me if I would ask it. Was about your role in The Office, that one episode you did on the final season. How did you get? Why did you do that?
I
and
had
how
never
was it
saw The
working with
Office.
them?
I saw the British one, which I loved, but I never watched the American one. But they wanted to cast somebody who did martial arts, so they looked up actors who have black belts, and they called me. And
You
I
have a
just
black
said,
belt?
in Taekwondo? Yeah. So
You
they
do.
asked.
So
they
you
asked,
could totally kick my ass.
I don't know about that.
I bet you.
You're a boxer.
Well, bro, I'm a
So they said, "Do you want to do
black
this
belt.
a day on The Office?" And I thought it was funny, and I just went and did it. That's how it happened. But the Rainn Wilson, I guess, wrote the scene, or was one of the actor wrote it, and he said, "I said, why did you call me?" He goes, "Well, we looked up actors who have black belts, and we saw your name, so we
That's
asked
fun.
you."
That's fantastic. So how'd you get your black belt in that?
We started
In
doing
Taekwondo.
martial arts 2002 down in there's a guy in Tribeca called Grandmaster Kang. And we're still really good friends, and he's
Grandmaster Kang? That sounds
he's
like Big
tremendous.
Daddy Kang.
He's tremendous, and his
Grandmaster-
family
Grandmaster
teaches.
Flash.
He's down on Broadway on White Street. He's great,
Uh-huh.
a good friend, and just a great guy.
How did you start that?
My kids my middle child was like 5, and he just needed something like that. We'd walk by it, and he went, and then my daughter went, and then I went, then my wife went, and my youngest. So all of us,
This was a family thing.
we all did it. Yeah, we do something different now because I live a lot in California. I did for like 7 years. This year I started living both places. So I went back to Grandmaster this year, and we did a different martial art in California called Subakdo, which is also Korean martial art, but it's a little more formal than Taekwondo. It's almost like Taekwondo meets Tai Chi. It's a little softer than Taekwondo,
Yeah.
a little easier on your joints as you get older. But I still work out with Grandmaster Kang. I love. I like Taekwondo a lot. It's good mental discipline. I think it kind of opened. I think it led me in a way to Buddhism and meditation because it started me to like clean up and take better care.
Right.
And the Eastern philosophies of it I really liked.
Yeah. Yeah, boxing has done that for me. Like, you know, and I like having like the yoga practice, but I like having the yin and the yang of boxing and yoga. You know,
I like the, you know, that's why you said when you talked about sparring that I know exactly what you mean, because I could do forms and all that stuff for hours, and then you do 2 minutes of sparring, you want to drop dead.
Right, and you're
drenched.
Like, and when you're practicing all your forms and shit, like in your mind, you're like, man, I might be like the greatest boxer ever. like in your mind, you're like, wow, I probably should go pro in this.
And then a minute in sparring.
And then a minute in sparring, you're like, why am I doing this? As you're getting punched in the face.
You're dead.
Like,
yeah.
It's like,
wow.
What
no, I get that.
It's like
I get that 100%.
It's pretty funny, man. Yeah, like Lou was way into Tai Chi. Are you going in that realm?
I've never done Tai Chi.
Yeah, me neither. I see it when I run. Like I see like people practice it in groups, like on the East River.
And in Chinatown, they do.
Yeah.
In Chinatown Park there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's nice to look at.
You know, for me, martial arts, as well as Buddhism, right? It's really about the teacher. I think all the disciplines have their merits and advantages, but if you find a good teacher,
right,
that's when it really kind of benefits you, I think.
Yeah, you're right, because it's not even so much about necessarily whatever it is.
No.
It's more like just the wax on, wax off type of shit.
Yeah, and what they're giving you, teachers are big time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially something like that, because it's not just about the physicality. There's a mental thing to it, too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I guess boxing, too. I've never done boxing, but I'm sure that has it, too.
It's a martial art. It's the same. I imagine it's similar.
Yeah.
You know, it's like learning. Yeah, combinations and little subtle adjustments and all this other repetition.
The balance of it.
It's a lot like learning how to play guitar.
Right.
You know, doing things slowly until you can kind of speed up.
Right.
You know, I don't know. It's interesting. Well, damn, that was great, man.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you,
Michael,
Joseph.
thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Congratulations on your book.
Thanks, brother.
It's really great.
Thanks.
Where can people follow you online, or do you not partake? Really?
I got my sons. I told them to set up an Instagram because I don't have any social media. So I told the boys, I said, make something so I can invite people to things and stuff. Right. So I don't know if they've done it yet or anything, but you can get, if people want to get the book, they can go to Akashic website or your local bookstore. Independent bookstores are a good thing. Support them.
Yeah, and this book is really worth it. It's really good.
Cool.
High recommendation. Go get it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, man.
All right.
We'll see you again, I hope. Hi, this is Joseph Arthur. Thanks for checking out Come to Where I'm From. Please support us on Patreon, patreon.com/come-to-where-I'm-from. We are an independent podcast, and any contributions you can make are greatly appreciated.